I often do this straw poll in a group of leaders. I say there are three types of you in the room. There are the prayers, the stayers, and the players. The prayers are a year away from retirement and just praying this is going to go away. The stayers are sticking it out. They don't want to change. They don't want to learn new tools. They're just going to stay. And the players are the people going, you know what? I'm going to get the cardboard. I'm going to go and work in the WeWork. I want to try this to understand what it means.
Welcome to the Masks Off podcast, Leadership Strategies, No Disguises. I'm Razwana Waheed, and together with my co-host Olivier Larvar, we talk to the smartest people in the world of leadership, change and psychology to give leaders real strategies to bring human back to the workplace.
If you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media.
In this episode, we're joined by practical futurist Andrew Grill to talk about the future of business. When it doesn't involve flying cars, what will the organisations of the future really look like?
Many of our audience will never have even heard of this term, let alone know what it means. So why don't you tell us, what is a practical futurist?
Everyone knows what a futurist is, and there are many of them. My favourite futurist is Arthur C. Clarke. And I dug up an interview he gave back in 1974, where he was asked about what the world might look like in 2001. And he accurately predicts we'll have a computer in every home, we'll be able to do our banking. I think the only thing he didn't predict was the iPhone 10. But he was predicting things 30 years in advance. Right. And generally the corporate leaders that are sitting in front of me don't have 30 years. They don't have 30 weeks. They may not have 30 days. They want to know what's happening next quarter. A practical futurist is someone that gives them something they can go away with next week and actually put into action. And I've been humbled by the feedback I've got, because I generally give my audience 4 or 5 things to go away and do that are not hard, that are simple. And the feedback has been, you know what, I tried that. The team has responded. I've seen a real improvement. People are tired of hearing that we'll be in flying cars and everyone will have an electric car in 10 years' time. Well, that might be true, but that isn't going to help me close the quarter.
That's actually great, because we really crave for practical tips, and sometimes some of the guests, they have lots of theory. But when it comes from practical, what can we do like concretely tomorrow? It's very, very difficult. So you are mentioning this disruption. Things are disrupting. We all hear about disruption. So how can leaders practically handle this?
It's an overused word and everyone's talking about it. So what does it mean? There was an interesting survey that came out from PwC a few months ago where they said that inaction from being scared because of disruption is actually worse than doing something about it. Their survey showed that many industries actually have many months, if not years, to react. And so it isn't something you have to do tomorrow, but you have to prepare for it. Part of the notion of digital transformation or digital disruption, or whatever you like to call it, is about change on the technical side. So there are technological things. We can talk about blockchain, we can talk about IoT, all those sorts of terminologies, and AI. It relies on an underlying culture change. And I think what I see in the audience, many business leaders caught in the headlights, they're saying, we know we have to change. We know this isn't the first time change has been brought about. We've lived through an internet revolution. We've lived through an industrial revolution. We're living through this 4th industrial revolution. But what do I do? Often I challenge them. I say, well, tell me the structure of your board. Oh, we've had people that have been here for 6 or 7 years. They're eminently experienced. I said, but how many of them see your business through a digital lens? And they stop and they go, well, none really. I said, well, that's part of the problem, because there are many of these executives that go away for West Coast study tours. They go and tour Google and Facebook and Yahoo or whoever, and they come back saying, yes, we're going to be a digital team. We're going to be a digital board. And then the next board meeting comes up and it's back to usual. One of the simple things I propose is that people think about digital diversity. Not one, but are there 2 people that you can put on your board that can run the board process as they normally would? They've got experience at a board level, but they see the business and the industry through a digital lens. And I think that's critical, because unless you're driving from the top, understanding that you're being disrupted and how to resist that, I think you'll just go nowhere, because all these smart people will come to you with business proposals and business plans, and you'll go, I'm not quite sure what they're asking us.
So I guess you've worked with some fairly popular names, Nestle's, Barclays, IBM. What digital solutions have you seen your clients or other companies just completely waste their time on for the sake of going digital?
You can go digital, you can be digital. And I think going digital is, well, we've got a website, tick, we had that 20 years ago. We've got a social media presence. Wow, that's amazing. But they're the shiny things. And again, the technology is only part of the solution. Are you transforming the way the company is collaborating? So do you have a work out loud culture where you allow people to collaborate electronically or in person and share that information? Are you transforming the way customers engage with you? Customers are increasingly demanding different channels. Are you able to transform your business processes for a digital audience? I may be a very old millennial because I'll be 50 next year, but I pretty much do everything on my phone now. I actually don't have to carry cash with me. I don't have to carry my Oyster card with me. I pretty much do everything I want to do on the phone. And when I find I have to change gears and do something to do with paper or something like that, or go into a branch, I get really frustrated because they're not recognizing that I have my set of channels that I want to go through. So just having a website or just having an ability to send someone an email isn't going digital. Are all of your back-end processes also being tied together? And the test would be, if you wanted to deal with a supplier or a competitor or someone else in the industry, could you deal with them electronically or would you have to send them paper?
What about the people side? Because yes, you bring all this digital, and how people react, and how does leadership change as well because of these changes?
I believe there are two different tribes, if you like, that are working in every organization. There are the going digital. The going digital are the people I normally stand in front of. They're 40 or 50 plus. They're well into their career. They know how to get things done. They know how to influence. They know how to get things approved. But their digital skills are still developing. The other tribe is the born digital. They were born with the iPhone in the mouth. They don't know a time when they haven't had the internet, but they don't have the experience to navigate those senior levels. The two tribes need each other. And so I think when you're hiring people, when you're developing people, you need to understand the two tribes exist and they need to coexist. You need to use the best of both sides. Leadership skills, that's why I'm not for a moment suggesting you fill a board full of millennials. I spoke to a large company a few weeks ago. I spoke to their partner group, so their 80 senior leaders were there. I called it out. I said, where are your future leaders? Why aren't they here? Why aren't even 5 of them here to offer opinion and advice? Because while they may not have the experience that you have, they will have different ways of doing things. And there were lots of nods. And in fact, I'm going in to see them tomorrow, and it's one of the things I'll have a recommendation for. I know I'll get pushback because it's like, well, Andrew, they don't get our way. And it's like, good. I'm glad they don't do the way you do. They'll have a different way. They'll have a digital way. So born digital, going digital, I think we can learn from both tribes and they both need to work together.
You know, there's Futurist in your title, right? So can you paint me, basically, you mentioned at the beginning this guy who had this vision at 30 years. So can you paint me like the work or the workplace in the future, how it will look like according to you? And I don't have any time scale, but if you have an idea,
I won't look 30 years out. I'll probably look even 30 months out because I think what we're seeing is the notion of the gig economy. And when I say gig economy, you're going to think of Uber, you're going to think of food delivery, you're going to think of the task rabbits and the low end type of itinerant work. But at the top end of the table, I'm seeing a lot of things happening around independent consultants. So people that were at Deloitte or McKinsey or IBM have left there and they don't want to work 5 days a week for the same company. They want to rent their time out. That's the other end of the scale. And I think in the middle, where be people that have got a lot of experience, they may be 4 or 5 roles into their career and they're saying, you know what, I don't want to work 5 days a week. I want to rent you 3 days of my time here and I might go somewhere else. The nature of work will be, we may have more part-timers, but you then have to cope with that. So how do we get information to these people? How do we know handing off from one person to the next? How do we keep confidentiality and security and those sorts of things? That will mean that maybe not everyone's coming into a place of work. They are working remotely. They are working in a collaborative space. The reason we work is so valuable now is that they've got the formula right, where they're saying people don't always want to come into the same place. They want to have some flexibility. They don't want to sit at the same desk. One aspect of the future of work will be the place. Where do people work? And the notion might be we don't do 5 days a week because we don't need to, we don't want to, we have a different quality of life. Or we might work for 3 or 4 different employers. That would be unheard of, but the freelancers out there do that. And I think we're going to see that going mainstream. And the gig economy will go from the food delivery end right up to boards. I mean, essentially, board members are working for a gig. They don't work there the whole time and they sit on the board. So it's not unheard of But when you have the main screen going that way, all of your processes, all of your space requirements have to be built around flexibility.
When I first left my job just over 3 years ago now, I moved from being in a busy corporate office, I was going to say 7 days a week, no, 5 days a week, to being at home on my own, working with my clients online, finding them online. And I actually realized that for somebody like me who's quite extroverted, that was incredibly isolating. And I think some companies do worry about that. First, just the trust factor in itself, with people not being in the same place. And I think that's a cultural thing that will develop over time, and we'll get over that. And secondly, there are some people that simply work better when they're physically with their team. So how would you advise a company considering having more remote workers deal with the social aspect of it?
It hasn't gone away, and it's been there for a while. I think there've been studies in people that do remote working. I'm an extrovert, so I like being around people. I think I work better in a team. I also worked out too late that the way I study is being around people with headphones on. I can work perfectly, even if there's lots of noise. If I'm on my own, I get distracted. And now there's the internet. I get lost in a black hole somewhere. So I think it requires two things. It requires the individuals that are the extroverts to know that they need to top up with human contact, and they need to go into the office or go into a collaborative workspace or work out of somewhere where there are other people that are like-minded. I think companies also need to measure and monitor that. So if they see that someone has been at home for the last 42 days, hey, where's the health check? I heard recently that first aiders in companies are not now just being trained to treat bruises, they're being trained to treat mental illness and detect mental illness. Yeah. So you may not have a bump on your head, but people are being trained to say these three little words: are you okay? And I think we're going to have to hear a lot more of that, and people are going to have to be brave to go, I'm not okay. I've spent 42 days working on my own and I'm a bit lonely. I want some human contact. How can you facilitate that and help me?
While you were talking, I'm here in France, and if you present everything that you just said to a French guy, you may have a riot, or you may have like a strike, because they say, it's work for life here, you need to build your career. It's always the same employer. Things are changing still, even in France, but it's a slow change that I can see. So how do we follow up? How do we support this change? Things are going extremely fast, as you just mentioned, but what can we do for leaders? And I know, for instance, banks are changing a lot at the moment. They disrupt their models. So how can we help this transition?
I have a brilliant idea, and I actually gave this idea to a group of commercial property people, CB Richard Ellis, at a conference a few months ago. I said, why don't for a week your senior management team rent space in a WeWork? Go into a collaborative environment and run your business for a week in a different environment, just so you get used to it. Because initially they're going to go, I can't possibly work here. Only when you try it, and this is the same with digital technology, if you try it, you force yourself to behave like other people are behaving. You'll understand what the positive and negative aspects are. Again, as a practical futurist, I put the challenge out. Next week, go and book 5 days, 5 desks for a week at WeWork, and see what it's like to work in a collaborative environment. Because if we believe the futurists out there, if this is going to happen in 5 or 10 years, you need to be ready for it. You can walk a mile in your colleagues' shoes by actually doing this. That also telegraphs to the rest of the organization that the leaders are open to change. Yeah. They're actually trying to change themselves to see what it's like. I was talking yesterday to a healthcare company about augmented and virtual reality, and they wanted some tips. And they said, these phones are quite expensive. How can we expect everyone to buy an expensive phone? You don't have to. Google Cardboard cost you $5. And the first time I got actually a promotional item from the New York Times, I took it away, I unfolded it, and only then did I get what VR was like. I didn't have to buy the expensive headset. And the penny dropped. For me, a $5 piece of cardboard, the penny dropped. Just by doing this, I think it then allows them to see what it's like.
What are the fears that you hear from your clients around this digital transformation? Like you said, there's almost like there's two different tribes in an organization. One that was born with technology that they can't imagine a world without, and one that has had to adapt to it over the years. So what are the fears that some of them express? I
often do this straw poll in a group of leaders. I say there are 3 types of you in the room. There are the prayers, the stayers, and the players. The prayers are a year away from retirement and just praying this is going to go away. The stayers are sticking it out. They don't want to change. They don't want to learn new tools. They're just going to stay. And the players are the people going, you know what? I'm going to get the cardboard. I'm going to go and work in the WeWork. I want to try this to understand what it means. And I think the distribution is there are always prays in the room because there's always someone close to retirement that just hopes this is going to go away. But the real worry is, how do we encourage the stayers to become players? Part of it is self-awareness. And when I did this in front of 80 senior partners, we actually had a secret voting system, and 1% of that room were prayers, about 12% of the room were stayers. And I think they have to go, okay, I'm now acknowledging that I'm a stayer. How do I get skilled up? Or maybe I don't want to skill up. Maybe I'm 4 years away from retirement and I hope it'll go away as well. But I think it's a self-awareness that, yes, it's changing. Get input from that diversity of thought. There are other people in the organization with different skills, different experience. Allow a diversity of thought conversation.
I would like to take your view on something, because I've just read this paper, this post actually this morning, and it was talking about AI, and the title I think was Be Prepared to be Managed by AI. So future manager will be AI. So be prepared to that. Obviously, being very like soft skill human, like leadership coach and all this, I say, okay, that will be a little bit tough for me, at least, to have a machine. I would like to hear your view on that. Do you see that happening in the future, like AI managing you?
For low-level jobs, it's happening already. And the CEO of Deutsche Bank famously said, if you're doing a job like a robot, you're going to be replaced by a robot. So that's a given. I think you're right. With the softer skills, could a robot manage a team of people? I think AI shouldn't be seen as artificial intelligence. It should be seen as augmented intelligence.
Okay.
So I would rather have a machine that I trust give me all the information I know that normally I'd ask my team for, and they would spend quarter of their week preparing a report to tell me what they're doing, and then when I wonder what they're not doing, if they're preparing a report about what they're not doing, if you know what I mean. I would rather the AI be able to give me enough intelligence so that I can make an informed human decision. A bit like autopilot on a plane. The autopilot suggests that we should start to descend. The pilot knows that, no, we shouldn't descend, so he she overrides that. So the autopilot is giving some suggestions based on previous performance, and AI is going to be much better and cognitive at learning at what's right. But if we start to trust what the machines are telling us, we may be able to make better business decisions more quickly because we've got better input data rather than relying on humans. You think about it, when someone writes your report, you don't get it in 2 seconds, you get it in 2 or 3 days because they have to go and collate and check it and everything else. What about if we allowed the AI, as you said, to give us the information on a dashboard, and then it came down to us to throttle up or throttle down?
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Once again, if you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. Merci.